Our second award tonight is for the Nick Adams Short Story Contest. This is a contest that was established in 1973, so it's the 40th anniversary of the Nick Adams Story Contest. And it was founded by an anonymous donor to encourage fiction writing at the ACM colleges. So yeah, it's been running for 40 years. It's named, Nick Adams was the name of the young protagonist in many of Hemingway's stories. So that's where the name of the contest and the award got its name. One of the great things about this contest, it really just encourages some really interesting and unique submissions from the different ACM colleges each year. We have a couple of faculty from our colleges that will do the first screening of all the different works. And then we've had some really amazing authors that have served as the final judge in the past. Some of our previous judges of the Nick Adams contest have been Saul Bellow, Joyce Carol Oates, John Updike, Maya Angelou, Barbara Kingsolver. So some really wonderful authors who've been involved with this organization and helping with this contest over the years. This year, Colorado College Professor Stephen Hayward and Lake Forest College Robert Archambault were our two preliminary judges. And they went through 37 different stories that were submitted and narrowed that down to the 6 finalists. And then novelist Peter Gay was our final judge. He's the author of The Lighthouse Road and Safe from the Sea. And of our winner, he was quoted as saying, "This is a story that's as beautifully and as carefully written as the paintings the author describes. I was often reminded of the short stories of Richard Ford while I read, a feeling I relished. But this story is not just style. While it feigns aloofness, it actually packs plenty of emotional punch. I only wish the story went on for the length of a novel, so I could relish the author's prose for days instead of hours. Bravo." And that story this year, who was our winner of the Nick Adams contest, was a story titled Truth in Lies, and the writer was Sarah Olson from Carleton College. Congratulations, Sarah. And Sarah's going to read an excerpt from her story for us as well. So, would you like a handheld mic?
I don't know.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
If you whatever you like to do.
Can you hear me? Does it work?
Maybe bring it up. Yeah.
Here, I'll just go like that. Okay. Hello. Thank you so much for that lovely welcome. And I'd also like to thank Lindsay Wolf and Betsy Hittala for all of their help and for inviting me here, which I really appreciate. I'd also like to thank Peter Gay and all of the judges in the selection process. It was just a huge surprise to be selected and a really welcome surprise, and I'm very honored. So thank you. Before I share the portion of my story that I brought to read, I thought I'd give you like a little background on why I wrote this story and what inspired me. The story is actually, it was written for a creative writing class that I took at Carleton. And writing has always been a big part of my life, and stories have always been a big part of my life, but I haven't always been the best at actually writing them down. The journey of words from mind to paper can be daunting. So I took this class to sort of ease that journey, and it was a great experience. And this would probably be a good point to thank my professor for that class, who was Greg Hewitt. I just want to thank him for his tremendous feedback. This copy of the story that I actually hold in my hands and that was submitted to the short story contest was the first revision of many. And the final draft that I actually handed in for credit at the end of term got a much higher grade than this one. So, I don't know what that says. Yes, but I should thank him, because without his support and encouragement and his feedback, I would not be here, and this story would not be in the competition. So thank you, Greg. But for the class, my fellow budding creative writers and I were given a prompt that encouraged us to place a character in the wrong place at the right time, or the right place at the wrong time, and so on and so forth. But I was really struck by the idea of placing a character in the right place at the right time, but having the character be wrong for the situation that he was placed in. And from this idea, I sort of got the main character of my story, Alan, who sort of has broken up with his girlfriend, but over a period of many months, he's realized how lonely he is without her, and he goes to her art show in an attempt to win her back. But considering the prompt that I was given, you can imagine how well that actually works for him. And as I was sort of going through Alan's personality and his character, I was also struck by the idea of truth, and how a concept that really is pretty straightforward can actually be very nuanced and pretty gray. As humans, we twist the truth a lot to suit our own purposes, and we might be telling the truth, but not necessarily the whole truth, which isn't lying, not really, but it's this idea that I sort of took to create a character who only tells positive truths and never says any criticisms or any harsh truths. So that was what I was working with, and sort of exploring how much truth you can really tell before it becomes a lie. So of the portion of my story that I brought, I feel like the best place to begin is probably the beginning, so I will jump right in. The gallery has no coat check, which is, Alan thinks, hugely inconvenient. In fact, the gallery is just one bare room, with one standalone wall in the center and smooth concrete flooring, no nooks save for the hallway in the back that leads to the offices. Alan resigns himself to carrying his coat. This is disappointing. He wanted to have full use of his hands while he walked around, assessing Eddie's work. He wanted to be able to house his hands in his pockets, to cross his arms, rub at his chin, gesture his enthusiasm. He would keep his jacket on, but he is wearing the sweater she bought for him for their second Christmas, the one that he doesn't like but is made of cashmere. It is a peace offering he can't afford to cover up, so he shoves his gloves down the sleeve of his winter coat and folds it over his arm. Eddie's newest collection is 24 paintings based on photographs, looking like photos until the viewer gets in close and can see the tiny imperfections that emphasize the larger technical skill of the piece. Alan is barely inside the gallery, and he can already hear the murmurs of, "Can you believe these are paintings? And how does she do it? How on earth?" He falls into line with the rest of the well-dressed observers, all adopting the stooped pose of the art viewer, leaning towards the canvas. Temporary letters announce the title of the show, Truth and Lies, in an understated sans serif font on the standalone wall. The whole thing smacks of precisely Eddie's taste, and Alan knows she must be incandescent with pride. This is a far cry from when she first housed her work in her aunt's coffee shop, which was unbearably chintz, she would say, eyebrows moving up and down quickly and mouth working downwards. But you do what you have to. This gallery, however, with its surplus of open white space and no lace in sight, is exactly what Eddie has been wanting for years. Alan knows she's somewhere in the crowd at this moment, feeling quietly and furiously validated. He does not seek her out, not now. It's better if she finds him, to be surprised and touched that he came, that he cares. And he does care still, despite the fact that 10 months ago he thought he didn't. He has already rehearsed his main points for this meeting. "I'm sorry, it was a mistake, I miss you, I love you." He resisted the urge to mentally map the speech, using the careful language he has amassed as a technical writer, because she won't be impressed if it comes out contrived. She'll want to argue that emotion can't be memorized, and Alan is frankly done with arguing. He wants her back, crazy and all, her breathless huffing laughter and her cracking knuckles, and her teasing and her art and all the things that unsettled and annoyed him about her, but now seem so necessary. He's had time to think about Eddie and her ridiculous brilliance as he sits in his tiny apartment, completely devoid of clutter and sound. His neighbors are remarkably noiseless, except for the occasional restive footstep he hears above his head. Each apartment is its own nation-state, communicating with each other in the form of smells, lingering the stairwell and easily translated by all the residents of the building. Someone ordered a pizza, someone is microwaving a garlicly lean cuisine meal, someone spilled vodka in front of their door. Alan sits on his bed with its severe hospital corners and interprets these smoke signal messages of loneliness. He misses Eddie's smell of paint thinner and unpolished wood, and her noise and her genius that he could never understand. Alan peels away from the center of the room towards Eddie's central work, the 4x6-foot canvas hanging on the standalone wall under the title of the collection. It is the petrified and distilled product of a camera flash, flooding a cheap, dark hotel room with light. The bed, with its rumpled linens and blue shadows, fills most of the painting, while the flash just touches the figure of a naked woman curled in an armchair by the far window. The light reflects off the painted glass, eerie in its perfection. The photograph from which the painting is derived is pinned next to the placard, bearing the title, Jasper, and is slightly out of focus, so the painting too has an uncanny hazy quality. The light catches on dust motes instead of illuminating the woman in the armchair, whose bare thigh and chin bear much of the unforgiving light. Eddie's signature lines the bottom of the canvas, blurred in orange, a modified time and date stamp. Alan doesn't like it, to be honest. The must sheets put him in mind of semen and secretions, and he doesn't understand why the naked woman has to sit in the back at all, except for shock value. Perhaps her literal vulnerability is meant to lend emotional weight to the piece, but it still seems jarring in its impassivity. The flash is harsh, the lack of focus is unsettling, and yet Alan knows exactly why Eddie chose this piece to shine in the spotlight, the keystone of her collection. Anyone can take a bad picture, she whispers in paint and replacement, but only I can make it art. Thank you.